All right, I'm saying it's 5:59, almost 6. We're going to go ahead and start the roll call to make sure everybody's present. Jason Burdine.
Here.
Addie Heyliger. Addie.
Hello.
Just checking roll. Is that
okay? I've unmuted. We're checking roll. Thank you.
Thank you. Dave Rosenthal.
I am here.
Alison Drew.
I'm here.
Grail James.
I'm here.
Jim Rice.
I'm here.
Kristin Tossan.
Yes, I'm here.
I'm going to go down the staff list. Deanna Saavedra.
I'm here.
Joe Rodriguez. Joe Rodriguez. All right, Beth Martinez.
I'm here.
Brian Gwynn.
I am here.
Gwen Touche.
I am here.
Veronica Sofer.
This is Veronica. I am here.
Oscar Perez.
This is Oscar. I am here.
Long Pham.
This is Long, and I am present.
Anthony Indelicato.
This is Anthony, and I'm present.
Rob Scamardo.
Yes, sir. This is Rob. I'm here.
David Ryder.
This is Chief Ryder, and I am here.
Joe Rodriguez, are you here?
Dr. Dupree, on the chat, it says that Dr. Rodriguez left the conversation, so maybe he's trying to reconnect.
Yeah, he was having some technology issues a little earlier today, but I think we can go ahead and get started.
Dr. Dupree, this is Joe. I'm here.
Very good. Thank you, Joe. All right,
Yes,
Mr. President, I will turn the meeting over to you.
Thank you, Dr. Dupree. It is 6:02 p.m. and this meeting is hereby called to order. We have the presence of a quorum attending on a video conference. Notice of this meeting has been posted online and physically at the District Central Administration Building for at least 72 hours. March 16th, 2020, Governor Greg Abbott granted a request by Attorney General Ken Paxton to temporarily suspend a limited number of open meeting laws to the extent necessary to allow telephonic or video conference meetings in response to the coronavirus COVID-19 in accordance with those suspended rules. Fort Bend ISD certifies the following. Although members of the board are not gathered in a central physical location, we do have a quorum in attendance at this meeting by video conference. This meeting is being held by video conference because the convening at one location of a quorum of the governmental body is not appropriate during the COVID-19 public health emergency. Based on current guidance from federal, state, and county authorities concerning large gatherings and social distancing during the COVID-19 public health emergency, there is no established location for an audience to observe the meeting. However, the meeting is audible and accessible through a YouTube link that was timely and appropriately provided to the public and media as part of the meeting posting through a news release and via the district website. As we would at any in-person meeting, members of the public who have followed the standard instructions for registering to speak during the public comment portion will be allowed 3 minutes to speak. All other meeting procedures will adhere to board adopted procedures to the extent practicable. An audio and video recording of the meeting is being made and will be available to the public on the district's websites. Since the audience is listening through an audio link, all board members, staff, and other participants will identify themselves by name when they speak. Board votes will be taken by a roll call. To start our meeting this evening, please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, independent, with liberty and justice for all. Please remain standing for please remain standing for our silent invocation. While we're standing for our invocation this evening, let's please think about those who are going through difficult times right now. I know it's not really easy, and there's a lot of unknowns. So please keep those in your thoughts as we have a moment here to think about those who are in need. All right, you may be seated. First on our agenda this evening is our audience items. Nobody signed up this evening to speak, so we will be moving right along. No citizens have signed up to speak. Okay, let's see here. With that being said, Dr. Dupree, let's start with our audience item.
Yes, sir. We have one information item this meeting. It will take a few minutes because there are several parts to it. But what we wanted to do was to provide the board an update on our response to the COVID-19 pandemic. You've received some updates via email, and we've done a great deal of communication in public, but we thought it would be appropriate this evening to provide a few more updates. We're addressing our 3 priorities at this time: minimizing the spread of the illness, supporting our students who rely on FBISD for healthy meals, and perhaps the highest priority item, in addition, is developing learning opportunities to re-engage our students. As you know, we've had many essential staff working during the last week while the district has been closed, and the focus of their work has been these 3 priorities. So I'm going to allow Oscar Preez to begin with to talk about minimizing the spread of the illness and talking about some of the things we've done in his organization regarding our facilities. Oscar?
Thank you, Dr. Dupree. In summary, with schools currently closed through April 10th, the Operations Division is working to accelerate work normally scheduled for summer. We're also supporting drive-through meal service, and staff are sanitizing all buildings. Design and construction. The 2018 bond packages are being expedited to take advantage of the district shutdown, and contractors normally working outside of the school day are working in the schools during the day. The contractor working the Child Nutrition Department warehouse building was notified of the employee who tested positive and has chosen to work other sites for the rest of the week. Design work for bond packages continue. Non-bond construction activities continue. Design and construction staff have transitioned to optional work from home status. We currently have 17 active packages under construction. 2 additional packages are expected to be presented to the board for consideration in April. We anticipate starting construction on an additional 18 packages in a May-June time period. Facilities and operations. The maintenance and operations team have been working hard to stay ahead of the COVID-19. The custodial staff use spring break to disinfect buildings. The disinfectant that we use throughout the district is on the EPA's COVID-19 disinfectant list. Staff dispenses disinfectant using spray bottles or an electrostatic sprayer. The disinfectants and the cleaning protocols Fort Bend ISD utilizes are consistent with the best practices of mitigating the risk of viruses. Operations at any given time maintains about 2 months supply of disinfectant and inventory at all facilities. Staff increased our order quantity, realizing supply availability could be impacted. Operations received 50 cases last Friday and expect an additional 50 cases this Friday. Staff maintains soap in every dispenser and in the supply closet of every campus. With schools sparsely staffed, custodial operations have taken advantage of empty spaces and accelerated work normally performed during summer months. Maintenance staff took advantage of spring break to validate that all sinks were working properly. Staff has repaired sinks not working and ordered parts to repair those that were not. As of today, staff has received replacement parts. This affected less than 1% of our sinks district-wide. All sinks will be operable before students return in April. Maintenance staff is also utilizing this time to perform preventive maintenance and to complete outstanding work orders. To provide deep cleaning, a KIVAC cleaning system is used at every high school and athletic facility to sanitize restrooms, showers, and training spaces. Staff has reached out to our approved restoration service contractors and have commitments from them to assist us with any disinfectant needed beyond our capability. Transportation. Installation of the compressed natural gas fueling station is on track to be completed by the end of May, ahead of delivery of the 30 additional CNG buses. District mechanics continue to address vehicle maintenance in expectation of buses being utilized during summer months. FBISD and Gold Star drivers and monitors are being paid during this time, and our bus drivers are on standby to be utilized as necessary. This concludes my report.
All righty, thank you, Oscar. Brian, I'd like for you to go ahead, please, and talk about how we're serving healthy meals to our students right now.
Yes, sir. This is Brian Gwynn, Chief Financial Officer, and I'd like to start out by saying that we started serving meals at 11 sites beginning on March 16th. Those sites were Dulles High School, Elkins High School, First Colony Middle School, Hightower High School, Hodges Bend Middle School, Kempner High School, McAuliffe Middle School, Missouri City Middle School, Ridge Point High School, Sartasha Middle School, and Travis High School. We offer 2 pickup times each day at those sites from 7:30 in the morning until 9 a.m. for breakfast and lunch, and then again from 11:30 until 1 p.m. for lunch only. We're averaging about 5,200 meals per day being served, and about 1/3 of those meals are breakfast and lunch pickup. So about 1,750 meals are picked up for breakfast and lunch. We are planning to add 12 additional sites on Wednesday of this week, March 25th. Those additional sites will be Ridgegate Elementary, Briargate Elementary, Blue Ridge Elementary, Heritage Rose, Burton, Goodman, Rosa Parks, Ridgemont, Lantern Lane, Armstrong, Mission Glen, and Mission Bend. And I will point out that those are all of our title campuses. So we'll have meal services at each of those campuses beginning on Wednesday of this week. They will also have the twice daily pickup, once at 7:30 and once at 11:30. So no changes to the scheduling there. The thing that I'll also mention in terms of sanitation, I know that is a concern that a lot of the public has. All of our meal handlers are trained in meal handling and preparations and follow all safety guidelines that are required by both local health authorities as well as state health authorities. And they undergo a regular cleaning of the sites where the meals are prepped. Although I will say that most of the meals that we are doing are ready packaged so that there is very little food handling that is required with these actual meals that we're preparing. And again, about 5,200 meals per day is what we're doing. And we anticipate that operation will continue with the addition of the 12 sites beginning on Wednesday. And that concludes my report.
Brian, would you or Joe speak a little bit about the work we're doing to identify ways to increase participation in some of our schools?
I'll let Joe answer specifically to the efforts that some of the title campuses have undertaken to do that.
Dr. Dupree, can you please repeat that? I'm having some issues hearing the complete sentence or the question.
We were asking about the efforts we're undertaking to make sure all students that can participate to increase participation in some of our schools.
Yes, sir. One of the things that we've done is we've released a survey to gather information from the different communities, really just trying to isolate what are some of the things that we can do as a school district to ensure that there's increased participation. A lot of the results thematically, what they shared with us was, having additional schools closer to their neighborhoods would increase participation. Obviously, looking at the times, was critical as well. There are some concerns with transportation, but we feel as a administration that by increasing the number of schools, especially in these communities, that we will increase the percentage of participation as well.
Very good. Thank you so much. Okay, so those are our top two priorities. Yes, what I'd like to do now is ask Deanna to go ahead and discuss our efforts right now related to returning our students to instruction during the next week or so. Deanna?
Yes, this is Deanna Saavedra, Deputy Superintendent. Thank you, Dr. Dupree. The staff has been working really hard, as Dr. Dupree said, so that we could begin to transition the organization in this time of crisis from instruction inside the classroom to a virtual or online platform to re-engage our students in the learning process. So the particular departments, it's been a collective effort across all departments, but primarily we've had our academic affairs team, our Department of School Leadership team, and our organizational transformation team hard at work over the last week to develop systems and structures. So as I go through to share with you the work that we've been engaged in to really launch this in the next few weeks, I want to organize the information in the way that we've begun to work on it through phases. Our initial phase was to analyze capacity. We moved into the second phase, which was building structures. I'll also describe what online student engagement will look like as we move into that phase. And then finally, online learning, where students will be and families will be engaged in course curriculum content. So we began our work first because we are one of the most diverse school districts in the nation to determine what is our capacity to shift to an online or virtual platform. The good news is that we were well positioned to do that because of the work that we've done the last 3 years with our learning management system and our Schoology tool. A lot of our staff are acclimated to using that tool, and students are used to working through that platform in their classrooms for the last 3 years. But to develop, so we developed a survey and pushed that out to our families and to our staff so that we could determine what is the capacity, what needs do we have in terms of hardware, what needs might we need to address in terms of internet access, and what tools do people need at their disposal in order to be able to do this. We did this capacity analysis beginning with leaders, then we transitioned to teachers, and last week we launched the survey for our families. We've gathered a lot of information up to this point. Families have until the end of today to continue to complete that survey. The early information indicates that we've got about 30% of our families as of yesterday who had participated in completing the survey. Today we had our call center alive and well so that they could continue to work with families who may not have had access to the survey online so that we could get them the information that we needed. Long's team is Long Pham with technology. His team is gathering the information so that they can begin to formulate a plan to deploy hardware and or online access preliminarily so that prior to launching this online platform. As we moved into the next phase, there were a number of different structures and systems that we needed to be mindful of and build again so that we could be thoughtful in the rollout of this virtual or online platform. We created a design team that consists of members from across all departments. That design team was really charged with developing the systems, structures, and processes needed to continue to guide the work. We also have developed an online training plan for both campus leaders and teachers so that they can begin to engage and acclimate themselves to the online tools that they'll need to deliver instruction, engage students and families. We've also developed specific teacher expectations by level that include information associated with online learning And when we think about instruction in general, whether that's in the classroom or whether through an online platform, there are 4 basic things that we need to keep in mind as we think about instruction. One is, how do we deliver and model content? How do we provide opportunities for students to practice and reflect on their learning? What kind of feedback can we provide students? And then what are opportunities for us to conference with students? So when we think about that in an online platform, delivery and modeling can happen via videoing lessons and pushing those out via Schoology. Developing systems, again, for practice and reflection for students. Assessing what students are submitting and providing them feedback, and then developing opportunities for conferencing. As we've built these expectations for teachers, we've also laid out specific information about how they might structure their day so that they have time to plan accordingly, that they have time to schedule business hours or office hours, if you will, for families to engage with them in video conferencing, and for them to provide feedback to students. So as I said, all of that is outlined and ready to be pushed to teachers so that we can begin to communicate those expectations. We've also developed daily/weekly schedules for families that give information about how much instructional time by level we might expect for families to engage in learning. I'll give you an example. Kindergarten students, as we think about them, they might engage in maybe an hour to 90 minutes a day at best. And we've given, we will be sharing with families information about what contents should they cover during a given day, how much time might they spend, how much time might they spend reading with students, and all of that is flexible in terms of how parents structure that. So we've given them good, clear guidance, but with a multitude of flexibility so that they can work through that process as a family. We've also developed curriculum supports for our teachers in terms of developing lesson plan protocols and providing them with exemplars so that they know how and what to do to plan an online learning lesson. In those lesson planning protocols, we specified specific extensions for GT students, specific strategies for sheltered instruction to address English language learners, and also specific information associated with modifying and accommodating for students with special needs. As you all know, Dina Hill and her staff have been communicating with officials at the state level, as well as working with her team to develop a plan so that we can work through and amend any students' IEPs so that we can meet students' individual needs. You all know that last week we launched our first at-home learning resources page, and that was our first step in building systems and structures so that parents could begin to re-engage their kids with fun activities and begin to develop some structure in their households as a readiness tool for more formal learning as we begin to launch those pieces. Our data indicates that we had over 30,000 hits to that particular link. So we know that our parents are accessing the information that we're posting to the website and the information that we're pushing out. The next phase that I'll transition into is what we're doing to plan for the student engagement. That will begin the week of March 30th through April the 2nd. And at this point, teachers will push out content to, again, assist families with using online learning tools and setting up virtual spaces in their households, very much like the messaging that families and parents get during the first week of school when we talk about expectations in the classroom, communication expectations with teachers, and things like that. Those are the types of engagement, communications, and pushes that parents and families can expect from their teachers. And then we'll transition into the formal online learning platform where students will begin to engage in curriculum content. And our launch for that is scheduled for April 3rd and will continue beyond that, based on the timeline for us to return back to school. At this time, as I said, teachers will push out online learning and specific course content associated with the curriculum, and students will engage in learning using that online content. So at this point, I've shared some very high-level information about where we are in terms of working through and shifting from in-class instruction to a virtual online platform for learning.
Ready. Thank you, Deanna. This is Charles Dupree, Superintendent. I want to kind of conclude by sharing a few other important pieces of information for the board's benefit. First of all, I want the board to be able to appreciate that everything you've just heard represents hours and hours and hours of hard work by a lot of good, hardworking people. Our team has been very dedicated to meeting the needs of this community, and each thing you've heard reported on tonight has represented a substantial investment of time, including late evening hours and weekend hours to try to get our students fed, kept them safe and clean, and to make sure that we're getting back onto online learning as quickly as we can. Part of the work we're doing also includes a significant amount of time on the phone. Deanna mentioned guidance from TEA. I personally am on a call with the Commissioner of Education daily, as well as routine calls, often every day, with other superintendents from our region, coordinated by Region 4, because we're all trying to work together. Dr. Dina Hill, our Executive Director of Special Ed, and I have we are both participating in the state's task force on how to address special education during this critical time. So we're twice a week, we're on calls with that task force from other leaders in the state. So there's a great deal of a lot of work going on. And the other things I would share are that we're also working as a member of our community. Anthony and I, as well as Deanna, Dr. Indelicato, of course, over our Chief of Staff and Collaborative Communities, we have been engaging more and more with local hospitals, as well as a county organized task force about how public education can support the children and the families of our first responders and healthcare workers. At this point, there is an expectation that we have yet to see the surge that is to come, and the taxation that's going to occur on our hospitals and medical professionals. So they're wanting to make sure that those individuals have adequate childcare options when they will be called to work very long hours for many days on end. So we're considering the possibility of opening our schools as childcare facilities for healthcare workers. We're still in the discussion phases, but we've had calls with healthcare professionals as well as the county task force related to that work. We're also doing our best to help local other organizations, nonprofits, as well as our faith-based organizations, to provide them information to help them successfully support our community in regard to food, childcare, and other services. So we are a community leader and liaison in these areas. Tomorrow, actually, I'm doing a video chat with about 34 different faith-based entities in our community to bring them up to speed to what we're doing and how they can best support our community and our efforts during this time. You're also seeing significant efforts of our communications strategy. I'm proud that our team we are leading the way in terms of communication. We're getting very good feedback from our parents and our overall community and our students that everybody feels like they're very much in the know. They feel like we're being transparent and timely. So I appreciate our staff for their efforts there. And then finally, I would say that, you know, the message we continue to impart on every opportunity is that we are in a period of uncertainty. It's impossible to know today whether we will be able to reopen our schools in April or May, even in August at this point, or if it's going to be even longer based on the cycle of the virus and our nation's ability to respond with the appropriate vaccines in response. So there's a great deal of uncertainty. For now, we have chosen to navigate that, projecting out a few weeks at a time. But as school resumes, we are going to have to continue to weekly navigate how long we're going to be out. Of course, this is information that I'm working with daily with local health officials and state level officials. So I continue to keep the board informed in real time as I hear new updates. But of course, our E-team, the members on this call with you, are actually meeting twice a day just to huddle and chat and make sure that we're keeping ahead on our priorities. And that has been one of our most important efforts as well, is to be able to identify our priorities. And of course, everything at this point is focused on our response to COVID-19. But over the next 3 to 4 weeks, we know we'll begin to ramp up more some of the routine work of the things that we do day to day. But for right now, we need every individual's sleeves rolled up, dedicated to the task of resuming school in a new way. So we appreciate the board's patience and understanding as we focus on that. And I appreciate your consistent communication, as well as the support you have expressed for our staff for their hard work. I just have to close by saying I'm exceptionally proud of our team. Our leadership team has responded in an amazing way, but every single individual in this organization in every job category has done things to make an impact in our community and in the lives of our students. Even those who were not designated as essential staff have done things like you see the teacher parades, where teachers have gone out into communities to wave at their students to make that personal connection. Many teachers have reached out to their students to engage them even last week before we asked them to. Certainly custodians, food service workers, even bus drivers are coming in to do jobs that are not their normal job. So many people are working across all aspects of this organization to keep things going. But our reality is that more and more people are being identified as sick in our community and infected with the virus. So we are right now in the process of sending as many people home as we can to avoid contact. So we truly do have a skeleton staff, a truly essential staff working, and we're expecting that staff to get even more lean as more people go home, because that's the only way we're going to flatten this curve and stop the spread. So just know we're going to keep providing the services to the best of our ability, especially if we can get teachers fully and trained up and engaged. But our reality is even essential staff need to be sent home as soon as possible. So again, we'll keep you informed, we'll keep our community informed, but for now what I'd like to do is turn it back over to Mr. Burdine for any questions or responses from the board.
Thank you, Dr. Dupree. This is Jason Burdine. I'm going to start with Mrs. Kristin Tossan. She has a question or a comment or both. Go ahead, Mrs. Tossan.
Yeah, this is Kristin Tossan. Thank you, Jason. I appreciate that. And I just want to say, I want to echo what Charles was saying. I don't think anyone outside of education or outside of the district can really fully understand all that our staff and teachers and administration have put into trying to get things ready for our kids. And so I just want to publicly say, I know I've said it behind the scenes, but I want to publicly say thank you to all of you for your work on this. I know you've been working around the clock. I know you all have the same challenges every other household has with family and children and just the challenges that this virus has presented for all of us. And on top of that, you're worried about our kids, our students, and getting them back to school and getting them the resources that they need. And I don't think anybody can fully understand the challenges that you guys have worked through, and I know you'll overcome them. So I just wanted to say that at the outset. Thank you guys for taking care of our community by providing food. I appreciate Oscar's update. I appreciate that we're going to be expanding schools where kids and families can go pick up meals to make it more convenient. So thank you for taking that extra job on for our community. I know that we had coordinated with the Houston Food Bank to have some food trucks arrive for our families, and we had some I guess some miscommunication or something happened there. If Oscar gave this update, I apologize, but I wanted to ask if we had gotten that worked out with the Houston Food Bank, and if they'll be showing up at some of our schools so that our families can get some of the food that they need.
Yes, ma'am. That would be Anthony and Delicato who can respond to that.
Yes, good evening. This is Anthony. We had coordinated a truck from the Houston Food Bank to be at Missouri City Middle School this past Friday, and we had numerous confirmations, and parents got there early. We had a very structured system. We collaborated with our extended learning department to have a numbering system. Chief Ryder had some officers there as well to provide some support and help. And then we realized about an hour and a half in, called the food bank, and they just dropped the ball. We had confirmations in email and writing and over the phone from them. So they acknowledged that. They apologized to every family online. Luckily, we had good leadership there from our department that helped make sure that all of our families have a number, and in terms of the order, they were in line. So even though they unfortunately some waited hours for food, we are actually tomorrow morning at the same site, same time. The food truck is supposed to be there, and we'll make sure that those families that waited did not lose that opportunity, and they'll be the first ones to receive the food. And if there's additional leftover, then of course those next in line will receive that. So that was unfortunate, but we're making the best of that situation. We do have a second food truck that's organized for this Friday at Kempner High School. We'd love to have more trucks, but at this point, that's what the Houston Food Bank says that they can provide to us. But we are asking for more, and we're hoping that that will occur, but they're also trying to support other areas of our city. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you for that update. So I'm sure there are going to be many, glitches along the way with a lot of organizations. So we just appreciate that they're doing this for our community and coordinating with you guys to provide much needed groceries and food for our community members. So thanks for following up with that and for coordinating that for our community members. I also want to touch a little bit on Deanna's update. Thank you. I know that we're a leader in the state in supporting our students in special education and working very hard to do all that we can, what's best. So thanks to Dina Hill and you, Dr. Dupree, for being part of that task force to ensure that our kids who are in special education get everything that they need, as well as our English language learners. I know that some of our students who have those extra needs or have extra challenges, in addition to technology challenges, I know that some of those are hills that we're going to have to climb, and I appreciate that we're not shying away from it or not saying that we're not going to provide it. I know that that Congress is looking right now at a bill, passing a bill that basically says we don't have to provide a free and appropriate public education at this time, with some saying that it's too difficult and we should just basically shove these kids to the side. And I, for one, want to say publicly that Fort Bend ISD is not going to do that. I don't care what the federal government says. These are our kids. These are our students, and we need to do all we can to support them and provide what they need to the best of our ability. Not that there aren't going to be some challenges, but I appreciate that this district is a leader, not only in the state but in the nation, in providing that. So I just want to confirm, Deanna, that you said that online learning, we will start pushing out tools and expectations and trying to get virtual spaces set up for our students March 30th through April 2nd. And you said it would look very much like the first week of school, so to speak. Just trying to make sure that we get every kiddo set up and meeting their needs and determining what they need if they haven't already been able to provide that through the survey. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, good. So that'll give us about 4 days for our teachers to try to get things set up for our students. And then on April 3rd, you said online learning basically will begin. I take that to mean instruction. I just wanted you to describe for the board and for the community what that's going to look like. Let's set their expectations on what online learning or online instruction will be for their student. And it may be good to break it out into levels if that's pertinent, elementary versus secondary.
Right. So one of the things that I mentioned in my comments is that as we think about the online learning platform, there are some things that would be similar in terms of what we would do in a regular classroom, a face-to-face classroom. And that would be, but as we look at an online learning platform, delivery and modeling of content. So I'm going to give you an example. Regardless of what level, a teacher may video using WeVideo a lesson that's going to push out content to kids, or they may assign a Khan Academy video to students to engage them in the learning of a particular content. Then, as I said before, we're going to push out to parents specific expectations associated with grade level and content. So let me go back and share with you some specific information associated with, like, for example, a kindergarten classroom. So a kindergarten classroom, if I'm looking at Monday, we might share with the parents, we have Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. On Monday, we might want them to spend with their kindergarten and first grade kids 15 minutes with ELA, maybe 15 minutes with math, and then set aside about 15 minutes of independent reading, because we know that the attention span of kids of that age may be a little bit more difficult, right? And then on Tuesday, it might look like 15 minutes of ELA, 15 minutes of math, 15 minutes of science. So, and then support for your child in terms of what PE, what ways might you engage your kids physically to address PE. And we'll also be posting online resources for wellness activities and things of that nature, character building and things that parents can work through in terms of activities for their kids. So Tuesday might be 60 total minutes of instruction that, again, family could determine what would those 60 minutes look like over the course of a day. And if they had multiple children, it may be that they've set aside however they want to structure that. We've left that flexibility for parents and their families based on their needs and the number of kids they may need to service. And so that's an example of what a Monday or a Tuesday might look like. Wednesday, we might go back to a similar schedule as Monday, where maybe there's about 45 minutes worth of total instructional time. And then Thursday, another 45 minutes, and Friday, so that there's a consistent pattern for parents to engage their children, but it's realistic and reasonable in terms of what a family might be able to manage, and what teachers might be able to manage in terms of providing feedback and developing office hours for video conferencing where parents could chime in.
Okay, good. So this is Kristin Tossan again. Thank you for that, Deanna. I'm glad that you said the word consistency. It's one of the words that I wrote down. Having 3 in my household, I can imagine how this could blow up, really quickly for a parent having multiple students in one household. So I think consistency is going to be key. You talked about communication. I think clear and concise communication is going to be key, and setting expectations for how much support we expect within the home. You know, how much are the kids going to just go out and get on their own through the videos as you suggested, or through, you know, engaging with Schoology and maybe turning in quizzes. I know my kids have done that in the past on their own. And then how much parental support is really going to be needed. I know that there are some parents who are essential and who still are working. Some are still working from home. So that, of course, they're going to be juggling working from home in addition to trying to support their kids. So I think the flexibility is great, allowing for that flexibility. But I just want to make sure that we're communicating very clearly what our expectations are for our parents.
Absolutely. And as I said, we'll have some front-facing information that'll be pushed out to parents via the Schoology platform, so that they understand what would a typical day look like. And which is why it's important for us, before we get into the formal stage, which would launch April 3rd, that there's opportunities for parents to begin to develop those systems and structures in their homes. That was also the intent of releasing the in-home learning activities, so that some semblance of structure could begin to build leading up to, as we said, March 30th, and re-engaging kids and setting up a more formal virtual learning space in their homes.
And that was helpful. So I appreciate you guys doing that. I know I heard from a lot of parents who were very appreciative of that platform being pushed out. Kind of along these same lines, when are we going to be communicating? Do we know grades, grading policy? I don't know if we're going to need any kind of for the board to engage in any kind of policy change, or if it's just a procedural type of change. I know we have a certain number of daily grades we normally require. Is that going to be relaxed? I mean, you guys may not have answers to that yet, but can we let the community know when they can expect to be seeing some of that?
We do. That is something. There are some decision points that we've articulated via the design team that we need to focus on, and we will be communicating what our T3 grade landscape looks like soon. Prior to launching anything, there will also be specific information associated with expectations and what that would mean in terms of grading beyond our T3, and T3 is just our third grading period. So we will be communicating out soon, within the week, information about what that might look like. And then as we push out information associated with launching and ramping up for online learning, we'll include expectations for grading for parents in that as well.
Okay, good. And I know you guys have said to us, and I know that you will continue to be mindful of particularly our juniors and our seniors and those who are, the way this is going to impact rankings and those types of things. I know you guys are working hard on that, and I don't really have a question around it. I just wanted to acknowledge that that we all know it and that you guys are aware of it and are working on it. So so thank you for that. My last question, I guess, is to Dr. Dupree. I know that you said we're trying to only project out our closure maybe a couple of weeks at a time. I think that's prudent for us to do that, maybe even take it week by week. So my question, well, first of all, kudos to you guys on communication and transparency. I know it has helped me as I've answered questions in the community, so I appreciate that. When do you think our next update will be for the community? And when do you think that will include, a projection about whether school closure will continue? And then I guess along those lines, perhaps an update on what we're talking about right here, when we plan to go live with online learning and set those expectations. I've seen a lot of community questions around that. And so I know we're kind of at a good place right now where parents are, it might be good to give them an update on that.
Yes, so there's a couple of different updates that we're working on. So the broader update about the long-term closing, we're going to engage, we're going to keep doing minor updates to the community to let them know we're going to make any major decisions the week of April the 6th. That's the next opportunity we'll have. And of course, many things are going to hinge on what happens from the state level and even our local county level. So, but we're going to keep communicating that in real time as it occurs, or just reminders about when we're going to be coming back to the community to keep them informed. In regard to online learning, right now, we did last week, we sent a communication on Friday. Actually, we sent one on Wednesday and Friday that kind of set the stage for when the time frames. But as you've mentioned, we need to keep letting them know what's coming. So we are planning another communication for tomorrow. There'll be another Thursday or Friday that's kind of the get ready, get ready, get ready. So encouraging more engagement with the online activities that are currently available, with more firm, direct information about when they may expect to begin actual instruction with their teachers. So that's going to be coming out a couple of times this week as we prepare to launch that.
Okay, great. That sounds great. Are we planning to push that out in some kind of written format for those who may not be getting those online or video messages?
Well, everything we're doing has been pretty much via email, video, and social media. We're not planning to do any mailings or anything like that. We are focusing more on the digital type of deliveries, but we do use the Blackboard that goes into every parent's text messaging and email account as well. So we do have multiple measures that we would use on a typical school day.
Okay, good. Yeah, that might be important to maybe at least push those dates out in order for them to prepare. Maybe let them know that they can go check their emails and that kind of thing. I find that sometimes parents are saying their emails are not getting lost, or they are getting lost, or that they're not receiving them for one reason or another. So that might be helpful. Thank you guys. Thanks to the whole team. Really excellent work during what's been a difficult crisis, I know.
Thank you, Mrs. Tolsan. Mrs. Heyliger?
Hi, this is Addie Heyliger. Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Thank you. All right. So thank you, Dr. Dupree and staff, for all the work that you all have done so far with keeping our community abreast of in this unprecedented situation. I do have a couple of questions. I think I want to make sure that I guess just to piggyback a little bit on Mrs. Tolsan's statement, is that we aren't expecting all of our homeschool children to have a full day. Is that correct? I just want to make sure that I emphasize that.
Deanna, would you like to address that?
What I would say is, in terms of a full day, what we've given parents, or we will be giving parents information and content level expectations in terms of a minimum amount of engagement that we would expect in that online platform. Should a family want to engage longer, because there's going to be practice, there still may be homework and things, but in terms of engaging in the platform itself, we're giving expectations in terms of the amount of time each day that they should formally engage. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does make sense. They said they can't see me. All right.
So
yes.
I gave an example of a kinder and first grade, but a differentiated. So if we thought about a middle school kid, that might go from 45 minutes, which was what I indicated for a kindergarten kid, to more like 120 minutes of engagement when you're talking about a middle school student, and possibly up to 150 or more for a high school student.
Okay, so then once we actually have, I guess, the regulation of how much minutes, how much time we have to do, and how this is going to be credited back to us or credited to the students. I just want to make sure that we're mindful of the fact that we do have parents that are still working, that we don't have parents that are, we have parents that are at home and available to engage 100%, but we have parents that will not be able to engage at 100% and they will still be working, and we want to make sure that students aren't necessarily penalized for that. So whatever the minimal, standard would be through this whole process is what, I would be looking for. So
that's good. I'd like to speak to that because you've raised an excellent point. And I do want to share that in talking to the commissioner, he has made it clear that all the minutes that we're held accountable for from the state level, that's all suspended at this point. The goal is we have to be able to demonstrate that we are making efforts to educate our children, even while they're out of school. And what you just described, Ms. Heyliger, is something we're spending a lot of time talking about, because even our own teaching staff, many of them have children of their own, and they've got to be able to balance delivering instruction to the students that they serve while meeting their own child's needs at home. And not to even mention parents who work in corporate America or in other types of jobs outside of education. So that's a very legitimate concern. And I think we're trying to manage expectations with our parents that our children, and even students. I was visiting with a group of students today online, and they were asking, well, are we going to meet with every class every day? And I said, no, that is not feasible. You're not going to see all 7 teachers every single day. I said, well, it's going to feel and look very different. So that we're going to have to manage those expectations to make sure that this teaching staff and the students and the parents understand it's going to be very abbreviated, but it's still designed to accomplish a form of education that's but even though it's different. The other thing I was going to add, and you did not specifically ask this, but I think it's important every chance I get, especially publicly, I want to make sure our parents and community understand this is not an optional engagement. Our children are expected to be in school, and they're expected to participate with us, and their parents are going to have to accept that responsibility. And just like we do with any child, on any given day, we will be working with the parent to meet their unique needs, whatever their schedule may be, their needs. But we do need parents and children to accept responsibility and take seriously the fact that they need to engage in the learning opportunities that we're offering them.
All right, thank you. Thank you. And I think my last question is, has there been any discussion yet around, I guess, makeup days? I guess that goes along with what you just said, based on there's no minutes necessarily that are required per day, but will there be makeup days per se? And I've been getting a lot of questions around that.
So that's an excellent question, and the way you framed it is the right way in my view, because it's not makeup of existing time. Well, the reality we're going to have to deal with is that despite our very best efforts, many children are going to have gaps in their learning because of they're losing the last 9 weeks of school. So it's very possible, again, depending on the cycle of the virus, we could, if we can't get back to school in April or May, we could be coming back to the board asking to start school in July or the 1st of August or something to be able to recapture some of that time in the next school year. So the way I've been framing it, when I talk to groups, is we may have the longest school year ever follow, right on the heels of the shortest school year ever. But the bottom line is we've got to be looking for the best interest of our kiddos. If you think of the special education students, many of them are not going to be able to receive the required minutes from their IEP, and we're going to be doing compensatory services for them simply because we're trying to do things on a minimal online schedule, no matter how much we try to meet their needs this year. Any student is at risk of having gaps in their learning. You think of the algebra student who misses the last 9 weeks, they're not going to be ready for geometry. So what that means for us is we're going to have to make some hard decisions about when we do resume, what does it look like? How much of the curriculum are we going to have to repackage and reorder, and maybe even put some concepts from Algebra 2 into geometry? to be able to make sure students have the runway to be successful when they do resume in the courses that they have. Today our focus has been on right now getting kids back to learning today, but as soon as we get that up and running, we're going to then begin focusing our attentions on the long term and what it means when we bring kids back full time into our buildings. But you're absolutely asking the right questions.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you, Jason.
Thank you, Mrs. Heyliger. Mrs. James?
Thank you, Jason. This is Grail James. And thank you for all the great information. I'm just so impressed with the staff and all the work that's gone on, all the work that you've all put in. This looks so well thought out, and what I hear too is you recognize the obstacles, because I just want to pick up on a couple of things that Kristin said and Addie said too, and that is we don't know how long this is going to go on, so we're planning for the long term, and we're going to struggle with equity because not everybody is going to have access, either because of technology, because of their situation at home, because of 100 different reasons, probably 75,000 different reasons. So I guess what I'm hearing you say is we're going to address that as best we can in the short term. And maybe this is my first question. Make sure that I heard it correctly. You're going to address that as best as you can in the short term, and then as we get to understand the landscape in the long term, come up with a broader plan or a bigger plan. Is that accurate?
Yes, ma'am, that's exactly right. Because the way I've been framing it with staff and that we've talked about very openly, we have children in our communities today who could do very well at home with mom and dad with a few resources we send, because they have the cultural capital, they have the parents who are equipped and prepared to drive their students' learning. We have other children, no matter how much we give them or how many efforts we make, they're going to still struggle. And that's actually what you've hit on is the comments I've been making to the commissioner, is all of these efforts are fine and good across the state. But I told him, I said, Fort Bend ISD is going to do it better than anybody, but we're still going to have equity problems it's just inherent in the way this system is going to be structured, from everything from the logistics of the devices to mom and dad's availability and capacity and bandwidth to be able to serve their children, to language barriers, everything you can imagine we have in our district. So equity is an issue, and I appreciate you bringing that up, because that's the piece. We are doing our very best to address it, but it's going to be very difficult in the near term, and it'll be difficult in the long term. Even though we'll have all these kiddos back in our building, it's going to place a burden on them, their parents, and the teaching staff to try to close those gaps in the near term.
Okay, and so thank you for that. And I think what I hear you saying through this evening's presentation too is, and I want to, well, first let me say, I really appreciate the at-home learning resources that you've already put out there. I've gotten very good feedback. People very excited about what was out there and being able to put some structure into their day. They want their kids to be learning, and they didn't know how to do it. So that is, thank you for providing that resource. I think it's going to be very, very helpful. I guess what I hear you say is we're going to have some gaps. We're going to have some places where we're going to have to make up learning time really for kids. And we're not going to leave anybody behind. So parents that are upset or frustrated that they don't know what to do, or they can't get their computer to work, or whatever it is, we're going to put plans in place to help those families.
Yes, ma'am, that's exactly what we're saying.
Okay, that's great. And I want to say too, we've talked a lot in the boardroom about students owning their own learning, and this has come a little bit quicker than we expected. We didn't want them to have to be doing it when we didn't quite have everything in place for it. But maybe, again, this is an opportunity where we'll learn some lessons about what works and what doesn't work. And maybe there's some opportunity to learn, some best practices. Because as some of your staff has already said, Dr. Dupree, there's so many creative things going on already that I see posted on social media, I've seen on YouTube, and it's pretty exciting to see those sort of creative and innovative things. And I'm excited about what other creative and innovative things we'll come up with through this journey. So I just want to comment on that, and I appreciate your staff's really, truly remarkable effort, their commitment to this, their understanding that the students are a priority, and the hours that you've put in and the team has put in, and many of the teachers, are working hard, and I just appreciate all of that and all the work that's going to go forward. We're going to be working in a new way, and we all look at us. We're having a board meeting through a video chat, and everybody's going to be learning to work in a new way. And I just appreciate all the district's efforts in that and the staff's efforts.
Thank you.
One other comment I wanted to make, and this is getting to something that Mrs. Tossan mentioned about governance issues, and I know we've got our way we've done business in place, but I recognize that things may have to change and things may be different, and our priorities might be a little bit different going forward. So I just want to say that I'm open to learning what that's going to be and learning to reprioritize things as we figure out sort of the board's role in this kind of new situation. So that's my final comment.
Thank you very much, Mrs. James. Mr. Rosenthal.
Yes, thank you. This is Dave Rosenthal. So I had several comments, probably echo a lot of what's already been said. And first, I would also like to thank Charles and the E-team. I think you guys are doing wonders under just unprecedented circumstances. I think in the end, a lot of districts around the state are really going to look up and to see what we accomplished, what we learned. And so I think we're going to be a source of experience for the rest of the state, and who knows, maybe the country. And so I appreciate the planning. You haven't just rushed into trying to get curriculum out there just for the sake of having it out there. And Charles, I was wanting to respond to what Addie was saying, and I was writing the word manage expectations. This is the second time in 2 of these online meetings that you were saying something as I was writing that same phrase. And so, I think Addie's right. There's no way that kids are going to be learning 7-8 hours a day, through online activity. So I appreciate you making that comment, and I hope that people understand that. And the other thing, and a couple of things, I wanted to, I guess I had thought a little bit about the impact in the future. This is going to impact kids all throughout next year. And it's going to impact kids differently across the district. It'll impact kids differently within the same schools. And so it's going to be a huge challenge to catch up from all this, because again, kids are not going to get the same experience as they would be inside the schools. And so I'm sure you guys are thinking of strategies, or will be as we learn more. And so I wanted to also ask, has there been any discussion with the commissioner, because I know some colleges are doing this already, about pass-fail? options instead of actually worrying about grades, trying to grade student work. And of course, that's going to have an impact on college selection and class rank and top 10% and all that stuff. And again, I just want to know if there's been discussion about that. You don't have to, put stuff out there if you're not ready to put it out there.
Yes, Mr. Rosenthal, grading is actually a local decision. And so this comes back to what Ms. Tassan mentioned earlier. That is part of our conversation. What we're studying right now is what's in the best interest of all students, and in particular, we're keeping our eye on those high school kiddos who every point matters in regard to their class rank, which could, as you mentioned, affects many things for their future. So we are looking at that as a possibility, and we're also studying it compared to policy to determine if any board action would be required. So we are not ready to really roll out the full plan, but that is one of the components we're discussing.
Okay. Well, again, I appreciate everything that you guys are doing, and hang in there. It's I would like to thank all the teachers and whatnot, and the curriculum folks who are putting in their time, and just trying to make a good situation out of a bad situation. So thank you all.
Thank you, Mr. Rosenthal. I appreciate all the trustees' comments. There's been a lot of wonderful things said, and I think this has been a great conversation. And as it's been stated before, Dr. Dupree, I can't say thank you enough to you and your staff and the E-team and all the teachers and everyone involved there at admin during these unprecedented times. I continue to be encouraged by our creativity and leadership. And, once again, thank you for the countless hours and sacrifices that staff is making so that we can keep our kids safe, keep our kids fed, and get our kids back on track to learning. And our board supports the efforts, and we will. It'll be exciting to see how we can move forward, because I know that we're going to be leaders, as Mr. Rosenthal said, in the state and likely even the nation. So I'm really encouraged, and the board really thanks you for that. So, and just one more closing comment when we're on this COVID-19 topic. Something that I've learned over the last few days is as we see these numbers come out, and you see how many people have been tested and how many people have been infected, the numbers are not an example of the numbers are not true. We have very, very few tests in this state right now, and there are likely hundreds of thousands of more people that are infected that are not even reported because they just have a fraction of the test available. And I'm saying that to say, please be careful, everybody. We can't educate our kids without being safe and healthy, and we have our community depending upon us. And be cautious, listen to what the information that's being put out there, and let's continue on in a healthy, positive way, and keep our kids moving forward and educated. We will now convene in close. Before we go into closed session, I want to remind all the trustees, please make sure that you turn your camera off and your microphone is muted. Make sure your camera's off and your microphone is muted. And the login phone number was sent to you to call in so that we can have our closed session. So we will now convene in closed session under Texas Open Meeting Act, Texas Government Code Chapter 551, under the following sections for the purpose of a private consultation with the board's attorney on any or all subject matters authorized by law, to consider purchase, exchange, lease, or value of real property, personal matters, security matters, student discipline matter or complaint or section. We are now convened in closed session.
Okay, I'm showing it's 9:10. Can everybody hear me okay? All right, I'm going to take roll real quick before we get started. So we'll begin with Jason Burdine.
Here.
Addie Heyliger. Dave Rosenthal.
Here.
Alison Drew.
I'm here.
Grail James.
I'm here.
Jim Rice.
Jim Rice is here.
Kristin Tossan.
Kristin Tossan is here.
Okay, I will come back to, oh, there she is. Addie Heyliger is present.
I'm here.
Okay, staff, Deanna Saavedra,
I'm here.
Joe Rodriguez,
Joe is here.
Beth Martinez,
I'm here.
Brian Gwynn,
This is Brian, I'm here.
Gwen Touche,
This is Gwen and I'm here.
Veronica Sofer,
This is Veronica, and I'm here.
Oscar Perez,
This is Oscar, and I'm here.
Long Thumb,
This is Long, and I'm here.
Anthony Delicato,
This is Anthony, present.
Rob Scamardo,
This is Rob, and I'm here.
and David Ryder.
This is David Ryder, and I'm here.
Board Counsel Rick Morris.
I'm here as well.
All right, Mr. President.
Thank you, Dr. Dupree. Thank you all for being here again this evening. We are now reconvened in open session. Next, we will consider motions on consider action on our closed session items. Mrs. James.
Thank you, Mr. Burdine. This is Grail James. I move that we appoint Tristan Scott as Director of Transportation.
This is Jim Rice. I second her motion.
All right, Mr. Rice, can you say that again?
This is Trustee Jim Rice, and I second her motion.
All right, we have a motion by Mrs. James and a second by Mr. Rice. To vote, I'm going to call each trustee by name. Please state your name, wait 2 or 3 seconds, and then vote yay or nay. Mrs. Alison Drew.
This is Alison Drew. Yay.
Mrs. Addie Heyliger.
This is Addie Heyliger.
All right.
Yay.
All right. Mrs. James.
This is Grail James. Yay.
Mr. Rice.
This is Jim Rice. Yay.
Mr. Rosenthal.
This is Dave Rosenthal. Yay.
Mrs. Tossan.
This is Kristin Tossan. Yay.
And this is Jason Burdine. Also, yay. This motion passes. Moving along, we have our board activity report. Mr. Rosenthal, please state your name, and whenever you're ready, give us a few seconds after you state your name and go ahead with our board activity report for this month.
Okay, this is Dave Rosenthal. This past month, the board members attended the Fort Bend Chambers Do School Boards Really Matter lunch series, superintendent formative evaluation, Fort Bend ISD dance showcase, TASB governance camp and legal seminar, 2020 STEAM Fest, Fort Bend ISD Education Foundation VIP reception and gala, board workshop meeting, Public Safety Day official launch event, sessions 1 and 2, Ridgepoint High School's 10th anniversary, Ridgepoint High School Black History Month concert, UIL One Act Play District Contest performances, Policy Committee meeting, Girls Basketball Playoff games, Houston Community College State of the College, Emergency School Board meeting regarding COVID-19 pandemic. That is it.
Thank you very much, Mr. Rosenthal. Next on our agenda is a special report by Mr. Jim Rice. Mr. Rice, please state your name and continue with your special report whenever you're ready, sir.
This is Jim Rice. I wanted to report that on Saturday, February 8th, Mr. Burdine, Dr. Dupree, and I made a presentation to the CRSS alumni group on how Fort Bend ISD has transformed our board and school district since the 2005 case study was prepared by CRSS, which focused on Fort Bend ISD. Mrs. Grail James and Mrs. Alison Drew were also present. On February 21st, I attended the Mexican American School Board Association conference in San Antonio, representing TASB at this event. It was very well attended with many good presentations and speakers. Thursday, February 27th to Saturday 29th, attended TASB's winter camp in Galveston, participated in a presentation with Dr. Diana Saavedra and Dr. Audra Ude regarding our campus-based accountability system, which was developed by Fort Bend ISD. In addition, Mrs. Grail James and Mrs. Alison Drew and I attended a presentation by our Fort Bend ISD High School Diversity Conference regarding mental health has joined the chat. Our students did a great job presenting to a packed room. We also attended a presentation featuring LGBT students, which also played to a packed house and was very inspirational and informative. At that same conference, Mrs. James, Mrs. Drew, and I completed the required SB 1566 training. On Thursday, March 5th, I met with 2 MBA students from Rice University who interviewed me about my tenure on the board and the programs and policies we have collectively implemented since 2013, since Dr. Dupree's arrival. They're preparing a follow-up case study to the one prepared by CRSS 15 years ago. And lastly, from my role on the TASB board, I've been asked to participate in bi-monthly teleconferences with Dr. Drew Howard, Senior Director of School Governance and Lone Star Governance Coach with the Texas Education Agency. I have forwarded a PowerPoint presentation he presented on the teacher incentive allotment to Dr. Dupree. I'm sure there's other things on their mind right now, but it's very informative. I won't go into the whole thing. Lastly, thanks to Mr. Burdine's influence, I was asked by Dr. Robert Long of Raise Your Hand, Texas, to serve as the moderator for 2 candidate forums, one for House District 26, Rick Miller's seat, and one for House District 85, currently occupied by Phil Stevenson. And in addition to that, Mr. Burdine served as the moderator for another Raise Your Hand, Texas House District candidate forum in the Katy area. They were all very well attended, and These forms were focused on the candidates' support or lack thereof of public education. I've included a native MS Word document to Mr. Rozier for his use in incorporating into the meeting minutes. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your reports, Mr. Rice. We really appreciate that. Next on our agenda is the consent agenda. Do we have any board members who want to pull any items from our consent agenda this evening?
Yes.
Yes, Mr. Burdine, I'd like to pull item 10A2. This is Grail James. I apologize for not saying my name.
Thank you, Mrs. James. Mr. Rice, would you like to make a motion?
Mr. President, Jim Rice would like to recommend approval of the consent agenda in its entirety as it is presented, with the exception of item 10A2.
This is Grail James. I'll second the motion.
We have a motion by Mr. Rice and a second by Mrs. James. Do we have any discussion?
Yes.
Harry? Mr. Rosenthal.
Before we vote for so we're basically voting for the rest of the consent agenda, correct?
Correct, sir.
Okay, so I have one comment on, let's see, item 10C3D. This is the construction for the new ag facility at Marshall High School.
Okay.
So I'm all for this. I love FFA. It's a great program. Providing it to more access to more students is great. My concern, and I brought it up in the workshop, is that I really want the superintendent to make a commitment to consider another facility so that folks down at Hightower, Ridge Point, and High School 12 will have a facility there too, because otherwise it will be impractical for those students to travel all the way up to Marshall and make that an effective program. Plus, you're basically asking 6 schools to share one barn, and that's not done anywhere else in the district. So that's all. I'm all for this, but I would like Charles to make a comment on that and make sure he's heard what I said.
Yes, I can speak to that. So this is Charles Dupree, superintendent. Even after the workshop, I met with staff, and what the plan is at this point, as you know, there'll be a design and construction period for this project. So the existing barn on the Hightower site, near the Hightower site on Trammell Fresno, will be operational for a while. And we're trying to time all of this in such a way we'll be able to get the funding and design and construct the other one, an additional site, as you've described, in a timely manner. And we'll be identifying that site in, sometime in the next several months. Of course, again, as we get through the current situation, but it is on our priority list to identify so the community can know and we can inform the board about where that site would be located.
Great, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for your comments, Mr. Rosenthal. We will now vote. We will do this by roll call as we've done before. I'm going to call your name. Please state your name and please vote yay or nay. Please give a few seconds after you state your name. Mrs. Alison Drew.
This is Alison Drew. Yay.
Thank you. Mrs. Addie Heyliger.
This is Addie Heyliger. Yay.
Mrs. Grail James.
This is Grail James. Yay.
All right. Mr. Jim Rice.
This is Trustee Jim Rice. I vote yay.
Mr. Dave Rosenthal.
This is Dave Rosenthal. I vote yay.
Mrs. Kristin Tossan.
This is Kristin Tossan. I vote yay.
And this is Jason Burdine. And I also vote yay. Motion passes. May I have another motion?
Mr. Burdine, this is Jim Rice. I vote that we accept Act Item 10A2 as presented.
Yeah, have a second.
Mr. Burdine, this is Grail James. I second that motion.
We have a motion by Mr. Rice and a second by Mrs. James. May we have discussion?
Yes, this is Kristin Tossan.
Mrs. Tossan.
Yeah, so this is the item for the contract with the county to call the May 2nd election. Due to the public health crisis that we are facing in not only in Fort Bend ISD, but around the state, nation, and the world, I believe that it's in the best interest of our public, of our community, to not move forward with this contract with the county, but to consider postponement of the election on behalf of our students, our staff, and our community. And so I would vote and recommend that our trustees vote not to proceed with this contract at this time.
All right, thank you, Mrs. Tossan. Mr. Rice, did you have a comment?
Yes, this is Jim Rice. And Mr. Burdine, I would agree with Mrs. Tossan. We are the largest employer in Fort Bend County. Currently, the earliest that we think we can bring kids back is at the end of the April 10th quarantine period, which effectively means April 13th. And that leaves just a couple weeks before the May election. And I just don't think anybody can be out campaigning right now during this period of uncertainty. And I think we owe it to everyone's health and well-being to cancel at this point in time.
Thank you, Mr. Rice. Do we have any other comments? With that being said, we are now voting on item 10A2. Once again, I will call roll. State your name, give me just a few seconds, and then say yay or nay. This is Alison Drew.
This is Alison Drew. I vote nay.
Mrs. Addie Heyliger.
This is Addie Heyliger. I vote nay.
Mrs. Grail James.
This is Grail James. I vote nay.
Mr. Jim Rice.
This is Jim Rice. I vote nay.
Mr. Dave Rosenthal.
This is Dave Rosenthal. I vote nay.
Mrs. Kristin Tossan.
This is Kristin Tossan. I vote nay.
And this is Jason Burdine, and I also vote nay. This motion does not pass.
Mr. Burdine, I would like to make another motion at this time.
Okay. May I have a second?
Well, let me.
A second.
May I make the motion?
Okay, I'm sorry. Yeah, go ahead. Please make your motion.
All right. I move that the board approve postponement of the May 2nd, 2020 board election pursuant to Governor Abbott's March 18th, 2020 proclamation, and to direct Board President Jason Burdine and Superintendent Charles Dupree to create an order pursuant to the Governor's proclamation for consideration at the Board of Trustee meeting on April 13th, 2020.
This is Alison Drew. I second that motion.
All right. We have a motion by Mrs. Tossan and a second by Mrs. Drew. Do we have any discussion?
Yes, Mr. Burdine.
Go ahead, Mrs. Tossan.
I would just like to say that I'm making this motion in an effort to be transparent to our community about where our board is headed, and in light of the fact that we did not approve the contract with the county to move forward with the May 2nd election. And so I just wanted to state clearly for the record my purpose that as it's related to the contract and the board's intention moving forward. You're on mute, Mr. Burdine.
Thank you, Mrs. Tossan. Is there anyone else that would like to make a comment? All right. I agree with you, Mrs. Tossan. We have to protect the public health of the community, and I think that's extremely important. So we will now vote on this motion. We will once again have a roll call. Please state your name and vote yay or nay. Mrs. Alison Drew.
This is Alison Drew. I vote yay.
Mrs. Addie Heyliger.
This is Addie Heyliger. I vote yay.
Mrs. Grail James.
This is Grail James. I vote yay.
Mr. Jim Rice.
This is Jim Rice. I vote yay.
Mr. Dave Rosenthal.
This is Dave Rosenthal. I vote yay.
And Mrs. Kristin Tossan.
This is Kristin Tossan. I vote yay.
All right. And this is Jason Burdine, and I also vote yay. This motion passes. We were now going to move along to next on the agenda is our action items, which we don't have anything this evening. So Dr. Dupree, we will review our future board meeting agenda items.
Yes, sir. As you know, everything is currently in flux right now, given the current circumstance and staff's 100% dedication to launching online instruction in the next week. So we have a bunch of items on here for April, but many of those are going to be postponed. And so I'm not going to spend a lot of time, but I will say one thing we are going to honor in April for certain is the instructional management internal audit report that has been coming. We'll withhold. There's other items like the board trustee training update. We'll need to determine if we're required to do that in April, or if we would now do that in relationship to the election when it is scheduled. We will revisit budget development and do a quarterly financial update. And April is a month also for contract renewal and non-renewal and termination, as well as transportation and hazardous routes. So we'll be determining how, for example, contract renewal at this point, we don't have an end to the school year to reference for any non-renewals or renewals. So we will be doing a lot of work in the next several weeks on all of these items. And we'll be providing a more comprehensive update at the workshop in April.
Thank you very much, Dr. Dupree. May I have a motion to adjourn?
I move that we adjourn. This is Addie Heyliger.
Addie Heyliger moves that we adjourn. This meeting is now adjourned. Thank you all very much this evening. I appreciate all of you being here.